Gajananam bhuta ganati sevitam kapitta jambupala sarapakshitam umasutam shoka vinasha karanam namami vigneshwara pada pankajam. Hari Om, Shri Krishna Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste and a hearty welcome to one and all for today's 19th session of our series aimed to lead us into an inward journey for discovery of inner strength and happiness. In short, DISHA through Bhagavad Gita. Friends, I would like to thank all those who have generously contributed to the collective Guru Dakshina to be offered to all our Gurus on this year Guru Purnima. You are aware of Param Vedanta's tradition to offer Guru Dakshina collectively on Guru Purnima and Gita Jayanti. Those desirous of making a voluntary contribution are requested to send the same early. 100% of the contributions received towards Guru Dakshina shall be offered to all our Gurus. Coming to today's program, Dr. Timoppa Hegde sir shall give us an introduction to the day's topics. Srimati Shyamala Madam shall help us understand two topics from texts. One from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga, the benefit of knowledge from verse 35 to 37, and the qualifications and disqualifications from verses 38 to 42. From Tattvabodha, she will explain about Sravanam, Mananam, and Nidhidhyasanam. After Srimati Shyamala's presentation, Dr. Hegde sir shall highlight the important aspects which we should imprint in our minds. Let's be attentive. Today's teaching quiz shall be presented by Srimati Vasanta, who has put this together beautifully along with Dr. Rekha Kumar. Srimati Meenakshi shall commence today's session by chanting and explaining Bhagavad Pada Adi Shankara's divine Ekashloki, which is a dialogue between Guru and Shishya covering the essence of Vedanta. Srimati Meenakshi, Madam, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ekashloki is composed by Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada, the shloka proper. Kim jyotistava bhanumana hanime ratrau pradipadikam syadevam ravidipadarshana vidhau kim jyotirakhyahime chakshustasya nimilanadi samaye kim dhirdhiyo darshane kim tatra hamato bhavan paramakam jyotistadasmi prabho. Adi Shankara's Prakarana Granthas range from a single one shloka to thousands of shlokas in a text. The smallest of his work is the Ekashloki, which contains the quintessence of Vedanta in a single verse. The verse is in the form of a dialogue between a guru and shishya, where the shishya is taught the highest truth of the creation. Anvaya Artha. The teacher asks the student, Kim Jyotis Tava, what is light for you? The disciple replies, Me ahani bhanuman. For me, the sun is the light in the day, and ratrau pradipadikam. At night, lamp is the light. The teacher again asks, Syadevam, let that be so. Ravi Deepa Darshana Vidhau, the way to see the sun and lamp. Kim Jyotihi, what is the light? Akhyahime, tell that to me. The disciple answers, Chakshuhu, eyes. The teacher again questions, Tasya nimilanadi samaya kim, when you close your eyes, what is the light? The disciple answers, Dhihi, intellect. The teacher again asks, Dhiyo darshana kim, what is the light for you to see or perceive the intellect? The disciple replies, Tatra aham, for that it is me, the self. The teacher then says to the student, Bhavan paramakam jyotihi, thus you are the ultimate light. The disciple then asserts from his experience and says, Tadasmi Prabho, yes, that is right, my Lord. Now let us understand this briefly. The external objects are seen due to light of sun and other forms of light like electricity, oil lamps, etc. Thus the sun is the drik or the illuminator for these objects. But to see the sun, eyes are necessary, which are organs of perception, and hence eyes are one step ahead. Next, these organs are perceived only because of the power of the intellect illumining them. But for this mind or intellect, a person cannot see or perceive it just like an object. How can the mind be seen? What is it that gives the inner instrument that light is the question. All external instruments like eyes, sense organs, mind, etc., are insentient and are not endowed with existence on their own. It is only when the consciousness or jyoti falls and acts into the other objects that these gain their luminosity or existence. In conclusion, it is the consciousness or the self that gives light to everything in this world. This self or Atma is the real nature of a person, and the Guru teaches the Shishya that you are that self. And the Shishya experiences it and replies, Truly, I realize that I am, or Aham Brahmasmi. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Meenakshi, for a very clear explanation of Eka Shloki. Here you will see the brilliance of Adi Shankara, who is able to bring in a dialogue form the essence of all Vedanta about Deva Deva. What is that because of which you are able to see? And that is the light of consciousness. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Today is 19th session of DISHA, which is the concluding session on Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga. And this chapter has been an amazing chapter. As you can see, this is the 5th of the DISHA sessions for one chapter itself. The earlier DISHA numbers 15, 16, and so on was by earlier speakers, spoke about the greatness of the Gita and about the Avatara. And then we saw how self-realization is the same as God realization when we understood the nature of the Avatara or God. In the 17th session, we went into the details of what is exactly Jnana Karma Sanyasa. That means, what is that which you really have to give up in order to be a jnani and to be able to function properly. And you will see essentially the true sannyasa of the ego, which will come out very clearly in this class. In the last DISHA session, it was Dr. Rekha who took us into so many sadhanas and to see which is the best among all the sadhanas. In today's DISHA, which will be led by Shamala Shetty, will be a grand conclusion of this wonderful chapter to say about the glory of Jnana. It begins with how do we get this knowledge, about how do we approach a guru, how do we ask questions, what are the qualifications of a guru, what are the qualifications of a student, and so on. The rest of the DISHA today will be about the benefits of Jnana. So these are the things I want you to be very sensitive as Shamala is explaining these verses, because at the end you will have a quiz. And if you are a good listener, you will be able to answer all the quiz questions. What is this moha naashah? What is this delusion that gets lost when you get jnana? What is the difference between papa naashah and sarva karma naashah? Why is sarva karma naasha more important than papa naasha? And where do you get this jivatma paramatma aikyam in these set of verses? Today's session is by Shamala Shetty. Over to you, Shamala.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Today's topic is the student after gaining knowledge, which was taught by Guru, and what are the benefits he would gain, that is jnanaphalama, and qualifications and disqualifications with the background of Tattvabodha. Before I proceed to the subject, I bow down to my Guru Paramapujya Swami Paramarthananda. This presentation is based on his teachings. In our previous DISHA classes, we had seen Lord Krishna was talking about first Jnana Swarupam, then 12 Jnana Sahakari Sadhanani, supportive disciplines. Each sadhana is in the form of yajna. A person should choose some of the sadhanas for the purification of the mind and finally take the Jnana Yoga and attain liberation. In the sloka number 33, Krishna says, Sarvam Akhilam Karma. All the karmas without exception will find their fulfillment only in Jnana Yajna. Jnanam is superior because Jnanam alone is the direct and only means to liberation. And after Jnana Stuti, he talked about Jnana Sadhanam, the means of attaining the Jnanam in the verse 34, which is Guru Shastra Upadesha Praptihi. Krishna gives an important method in the sloka 34. This is my favorite verse, which is coming in the next slide. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatvadarshinaha. With the help of Guru and Shastra, conducting self-inquiry is the only solution for self-knowledge. Krishna talked about the importance of Guru, that is, necessity of a Guru, the qualification of a Guru, and then students' attitude to approach a Guru and Guru's teaching. Here, Guru means teaching Guru, not inspiring Gurus or initiating Gurus. Of course, these Gurus help in the purification of mind, but teaching Guru alone removes our ignorance. In the first half of the verse, Krishna talks about the qualifications of the student. Self-knowledge is to be gained by prostration, pranipathena, which means Shraddha and Bhakti. Then by pariprashnena, questions from all angles, and by service, sevaya, by the student with the attitude of surrender, humility, and reverence. We will know about the Guru in the next slide. Guru must be Shrotriya Brahmanishta, who has knowledge and rooted in his Sat Swarupa, and who can communicate this teaching, who can bring out the essential teaching of the Shastra in a way that a student can understand, and also student can have clarification. This is extremely important, and this is not Krishna's advice even. This is the advice of the Upanishads also. Mundaka Upanishad says, Tad vijnanartham saha gurum eva abhigachet samitpanihi shrotriya brahmanishtham. Similar to this, I have read a Subhashita Ratnam in Vedanta Vani magazine of Chinmaya Mission. And somewhere it is mentioned that this is from Kalidasa's Malavakagni Mitram. Shlishta kriya kasyachidatma samstha sankranti ranyasya vishesha yukta yasyo bhayam sadhu sashikshakana dhuri pratishthapaitavya eva, means very few people have deep knowledge and even fewer have teaching skills. One who possesses both is an excellent teacher who deserves and commands all respect. If a Shishya with Shraddha, Bhakti, Jignasa goes to a qualified Guru, the Jnanaphalam will definitely happen. What is Jnanaphalam? This is explained in the verses from 35th to 37th. Before going to these Bhagavad Gita verses, let us quickly go through Tattvabodha and see how to gain knowledge and what are the jnanaphalams one will get after gaining the self-knowledge. Let us see Tattvabodha in the next slide. The means of getting the self-knowledge involves 3 stages known as Sravanam, Mananam and Nidhidhyasanam. Sravanam is a systematic and continuous listening to the scriptures for a length of time from a competent guru. Each word is important. During this time, no questions are allowed. We have to only get comprehensive teaching from all angles. If questions come, I keep them aside until one comprehensive study is over. This process is called Sravanam. Next, Mananam, the second stage. After comprehensively listening for a length of time, student brings out all his doubts, and the guru helps the student in removing all doubts. And how do I know that all questions have subsided or not? I must be able to say, Aham Brahmasmi. The world cannot affect me. So, Mananam is the process of conviction. Nisamshaya Jnanam, with regard to my essential nature. And then comes the process of Nidhidhyasanam, which is the process of internalization or assimilation of this knowledge. This is called Jnana. Assimilated knowledge alone nourishes me. Even though the study part is over, I keep in touch with Shastram. This is Jnana Yoga, subtlest form of sadhana. What are the benefits of this knowledge? First one is Jivan Mukti, where I am mentally, emotionally, or psychologically an independent person, which means the presence and absence of beings, things will not affect me emotionally. This is called Swatantram. Second benefit is Purnatvam, the sense of fulfillment in life, completeness. Third benefit is Samatvam, the emotional strength to face ups and downs of life. Jnanam becomes a great shock absorber. With this background, we shall enter into Bhagavad Gita. Now Krishna talks about Jnanaphalam from 35th to 37th verse. Next slide, please. Yajñātva na punarmoham yevam yasyasi pandava yena bhutanya sheshena drakṣasyatmanyatho mayi. In this verse, Krishna presents the 2 jnanaphalams. First one is sarva moha naashah, freedom from conflicts in life. It is a very big intellectual problem. Every moment we have to take decision, which creates conflict because of the unpredictability or consequences and also our own limitation. Jnanam alone will give the courage to face the uncertainty of the future. Na punarmoham evam yasyasi. You will never get into conflict anymore. Self-knowledge keeps you sane. This is benefit number 1. Then the second benefit is yena, by this knowledge. Bhutani asheshena drakshasi atmani athomayi. You will know that all living beings, the entire creation is resting in the self and also in the Lord. That means Jivatma and Paramatma are essentially one only, like wave and ocean are one. Jiva Ishvara Bedha Nivritti. This is benefit number 2. Here we can see Mahavakyam. Third benefit in the next slide. Api chedasi papebhyaha sarvebhyah papakruttamaha sarvam jnanaplavenaiva vrajinam santarishyasi. Now Krishna gives the third benefit in this verse. Sarva papa naashah. The benefit of self-knowledge is the destruction of all your papam, which cannot be done by any other method. It is impossible to exhaust all papam accumulated from the janmas. Therefore, Krishna compares the papam to the huge ocean, Rajina Arnavam. However, he also says that even if one is the worst sinner, with the boat of knowledge, Jnana Naiva, one can cross the ocean of sins. This is the third benefit. Fourth benefit in the next slide. Yathai dhamsi samithognihi bhasmasat kurute Arjuna jnanagni sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute tatha. Now, Krishna is going to talk about the fourth phalam in this verse. This is a very important sloka. Here, Krishna says that the phalam is sarva karma naashah. Here, karma means karma phalam, punyam and papam. And the Shastra talks about three types of karma phalam. One is sanchita karma phalam, that is punyam and papam acquired in the past janmas. The second is prarabdha karma phalam. That means a portion of the sanchita karma which has matured in the present janma and ready to fructify. And the third one is agami karma, which we acquire through our present actions. These are responsible for punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam cyclic process. Here Krishna says all the karmas are destroyed. Sanchitam is destroyed, agami is avoided, and prarabdha is exhausted without being affected by prarabdha. Jnani's mind continues to be samam, irrespective of the conditions. This is the essence of this verse, and Krishna gives an example in the next slide to convey this idea. And the example is Yathai dhamsi samiddaha agnihi bhasmasat kurute. Knowledge is compared to a huge blazing fire. Anything that falls within, it is burned down to ashes. Similarly, all the karmas are burned down to ashes by Jnana Agni, the fire which is well kindled by Sravanam Mananam Nidhidhyasanam. In the modern example, it is like delete button in the computer. Once you know and press the delete button, everything will be deleted. Now in the previous verse, Krishna said, Sarva Papa Nashaha. In this verse, Krishna says, Sarva Karma Nashaha. According to Vedanta, Papam gives immediate sorrow. Punyam gives later sorrow. Punyam is considered to be a golden shackle. Punyam is also bandha, because we will be happy by its arrival. We will be sad by its departure after the exhaustion of punya phala. Kshine punye martya lokam vishanti. And that is why Jnani goes beyond punyam and papam. And Krishna is going to say in the end, Sarva dharman api parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. You transcend both dharma and adharma. Moksha is beyond punyam and papam. Next slide, please. With verses 38 through 42, Krishna concludes this chapter with spiritual disciplines or sadhanas. Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddhaha kalenatmani vindati. In the first line of this verse, jnanena sadrusham pavitramiha nasti. There is no purifier greater than knowledge. Jnanam alone is the greatest purifier, as it destroys all types of papams or impurities. Other prayashchitta karmas are purifiers, but they cannot remove ajnanam, self-ignorance. There is only one lotion which will wash it off, that is called jnana jalam. Guru padodakam samyak tasmai shri gurave namaha. Padodakam is born out of teaching. A qualified person who has prepared himself for the knowledge is yoga samsiddhaha. One's mind has been prepared for knowledge through yoga, karma yoga, ashtanga yoga, upasana, etc. Through this sadhana, he gains this knowledge. Atmani vindati. Atmani means in the pure mind, you will discover this knowledge. And how long it will take, Krishna cannot specify because it varies from seeker to seeker. Therefore, Krishna says, sooner or later, you will get this knowledge. Don't bother how long it will take. You start your journey. One should just enjoy the journey and not to worry about how far to go. In the next slide, Krishna talks about importance of faith. Shraddha va labhate jnanam tatparasayatendriyaha jnanam labdhva param shantim achirenadhigacchati. In this verse, more sadhanas are prescribed. Shraddhavan, one who has faith in the validity of scriptures. In this verse, it is stressed that faith in the validity of our scriptures is important until we clearly understand them. If there is something in the scriptures that is not very clear, one should just keep them aside and keep studying. One should seek the help of the Guru, and Guru is always ready to clear the doubts. Next, sadhana, tatparaha, who is devoted, who is committed. And next, sadhana, sayatendriyaha, whose sense organs are restrained or controlled. If a person follows these, labhyate jnanam, he attains knowledge. Jnanam labdhva, having attained this knowledge, achirena, immediately, param shantim adhigacchati, he attains permanent peace of mind. What will obstruct spiritual progress? Ajnascha shraddhadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati nayallokosti nah paraha na sukham samshayatmanaha. In this verse, Krishna declares 3 negative traits that will hinder the spiritual progress in a person: ignorance, lack of faith, and doubt. Among these 3, the one who doubts will suffer the most. An ajnani, the ignorant who has faith in the scriptures, may not get the comforts of this life, ihaloka sukham, because of his ignorance. But because of his faith, he will get good next life, paraloka sukham. A person who has worldly knowledge but has no faith will get ihaloka sukham but may not get paraloka sukham. The doubter may have worldly knowledge, but he is unsure. He doubts everything and even scriptures also. Therefore, he is unable to have ihaloka sukham and paraloka sukham as well. The worst enemy is doubt. Trust is very important in life, in things other than Vedanta also. Trusting requires taking some risk, but it is inevitable. Let us know 3 levels of sadhana in the next slide. Yoga sanyasta karmanam jnana sanchinna samshayam atmavantam na karmani nibadhranti dhananjaya. So here Krishna is summing up the sadhana and the phala. A person has to go through 3 levels of sadhana. They are Sravanam, Mananam, and Nidhidhyasanam. Yoga means Sravanam of this Jnanam. What is Jnanam? I am of the nature of Atma Swarupam. Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam. One who has renounced all actions through knowledge is the stage of Sravanam. Jnana Sanchinna Samshayam, who has destroyed all doubts by knowledge, by gaining conviction, is the stage of Mananam. Jnanam means conviction. Atmavantam, this is the Nidhidhyasanam stage, and in which a person is alert to avoid forgetfulness of this teaching. Jnana must be available in day-to-day life. Krishna calls such an alert person an Atmavan, the one whose knowledge is ever present during all transactions. So the one who has done the Shravana, Manana and Nidhidhyasanam, the karma cannot bind him. Karmani na nibadhnanti. In the next slide, we shall see Krishna's direct advice to Arjuna. तस्मादज्ञानसम्भूतं हृत्स्थं ज्ञानासिनात्मनः चित्वैनं संशयं योगम् आतिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत. Now Krishna gives direct advice to Arjuna. Get rid of your doubt. It is your worst enemy. Follow Karma Yoga for purification and Jnana Yoga for enlightenment of mind. Having clearly grasped this teaching, remove all your doubts. Jnanasina, with sword of knowledge, destroy ignorance. Doubt is a product of ignorance. So, destroying ignorance will clear all your doubts. With this, Krishna ends the 4th chapter. Let us see in the next slide what all topics we covered in this chapter. Gita Stuti and Avatara, knowledge of Avatara and its result, the wisdom of seeing inaction in action and action in inaction. That is the characteristics of the five. The glory and the means of knowledge, benefit of knowledge, qualifications and disqualification. Next slide, please. This chapter is called Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga. Sanyasa here means renunciation of actions by knowledge that the self is not the doer. I am not a karta, so I am not a bhokta. With this knowledge, one performs no action even when action appears to take place. Kurvannapi na karoti. Om Tatsaditi Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yogo Nama Chaturdhodhyayaha. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Shamala. That was absolutely brilliant. An excellent coverage of the allotted verses and the Tattvabodha, delivered in such poise and such clarity that helps us to understand. And also your ability to chant all the verses, make these verses come alive. I have very little to emphasize after you have spoken about each of these verses. Fortunately, this set of verses are often quoted, that with the pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, which has nicely described as the qualifications of the teacher and what we should do in order to be able to get spiritual knowledge. The next verse spoke about once you get spiritual knowledge, we have a set of 4 benefits. The first benefit is all confusion and doubts, delusion in the mind goes away once spiritual knowledge gets over. And then you have the highest benefit ever, to be able to see that you are not ordinary. Until now, we consider that I'm an ordinary human being, but you realize that, as someone very nicely said, we are not human beings having an occasional spiritual experience, but the other way around. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And suddenly I discover that I am not in the world, but the whole world is in me. You will be able to see all the objects, everybody in me and everybody in God. That means I am not other than God. And that is the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, which is brought about in this verse. The next verse talks about something so wonderful. This is the promise of Lord Shri Krishna. We have lived so many lives. In all our lives, we have committed so many mistakes which have been accumulated as the Sanchita Papa Karma. And Shri Krishna says, Jnanam is the boat, a plava that takes you across the ocean of samsara. Here we need to understand how does Jnanam become the boat to take us across the ocean of samsara. I will explain that in the next set of verses because this is extremely important. This verse, verse 37, see, as he said, all these verses, Yatha adhyamsi. That means just like fuel, samido agni basmasat kurute, jnanagni sarva karmani basmasat kurute tata. Yatha tata. Just like how the fuel is burnt in the fire, all our karmas, both punya and papa. The last verse spoke about all our punyas being destroyed. And this verse tells us not only the punya, not only the papa, even the punya, which is a golden shackle, very nicely described by Shamala. Because if that is not destroyed, we have to live again a future life to be able to complete all our punyas. And this verse tells us that once jnanam comes in, both the punya and the papa are destroyed, because jnana is a very powerful agni. And what kind of agni? An agni that has the ability to destroy all our karma. How does it do so? I mean, this is where we need to have Shraddha in Lord Krishna. Just like radiation can burn cancer cells, Jnanam has the ability to destroy all our sanchita karma and ensure that we do not create any more, that is agami karma, and then gives us the strength to be able to live out our prarabdha. But for a jnani, he is so disidentified. So the jnanam destroys our sanchita, ensures that we do not do any more agami. And for a jnani who does not identify with this body, as far as the jnani is concerned, there is no prarabdha karma. It is like somebody is going through suffering, because a jnani has completely disidentified his body, and therefore his body suffering is somebody suffering. But to others, you will see a jnani has a certain amount of prarabdha karma. Just as idansi, how firewood can be burnt into ashes, basmata sat, so too jnanam, or the fire of jnanam, can burn all our karmas. Now, any amount of karmas are responsible for a future janma. Moksha means all our karmas have to be exhausted. Now, who is the owner of all our karma? We must remember our body and mind. Who is the doer of the action? Whoever does action, whoever does the karma, becomes the bhokta. Now let us analyze this, because if this is understood, the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is understood. In the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Jnana Karma Sanyasa, where is the real sannyasi? What is that which we really have to give up is brought out in this last set of verses. Is it my body that is doing actions? We know the body is inert. It is just an instrument. The next question, is it my mind? My mind is a subtle instrument. It is only an instrument. So therefore, the body cannot do, the mind cannot do. The Atma, which empowers this, is infinite. It does not move. And anything that does not move, any action involves movement. So the body cannot do, the mind cannot do, the Atma cannot do. Then who does? When I am fast asleep throughout the night, is it possible to commit any punya or papa? Not possible. Although my body is there, my mind is in a restful state, Atma is there. But when I wake up, one more person comes into being. Who is that new person who comes into being? The moment I wake up, when the mind becomes awake, there is a new entity which is reflected in the mind, which uses that consciousness reflecting out of my body mind. That is the ego or the ahankara. It is the ahankara which is responsible for all punya, ahankara which is responsible for all papa, and therefore it is the ahankara that enjoys, the ahankara suffers, and that is the bhokta. The more we understand, we realize I am other than my body. Mano buddhi hankara chittani naham. I am none of these. Then who am I? Chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. Real sannyas is renunciation of the ego. And that is why there is no greater purifier than jnanam. Because once my ego is removed, then I have like a roasted seed, an ego for transactional purposes. Such an ego has nothing to prove to anybody. Such an ego has no personal agenda. When there is no personal agenda, then you are around, depending upon your abilities, you will do whatever is required in that moment. There is no motive. When there is no motive, I do karma, but there is no punya and there is no papa. And that is why jnanam is the greatest purifier ever that is available. This is another nice thought. What is that which brings me to karma and karma? That is avidya. Remember this phrase, avidya, kama, karma. The moment avidya goes because of jnanam, there is no karma. When there is no karma, there is no karma. And when there is no karma, there is no punya, there is no papa. When there is no karma, there is no punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. This is the essence of jnana karma sannyasa yoga. The real renunciation is not renunciation of anything else. It is the renunciation of a sense of ownership of who is the one, who is the karta, and who is the bhokta. And that is my ego. And this is what we have to understand in this beautiful 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This is possible for a person with a pure heart who has shraddha. That means what the scriptures say is 100% true. What my guru says is 100% true. And if a person has shraddha and studies just these Gita verses, then what happens? Jnanam comes, param shanti comes. And when does it come? Achirena. The word chiranjeevi means a long life. Achirena means very quickly. Adhigachati. A person is able to achieve. And in this verse, again, a highly quoted verse, Shraddhavan labate jnanam. And also there is the other sadhanas, not only Shraddha, Tattvabodha. Not only you should have Tattvabodha, you should have commitment. And also mastery over all our organs of action, or all our sense organs and organs of action, so that I'm in the path of Dharma. And finally, this beautiful conclusion of in the 15th chapter, you have the Ashwatha tree, which has to be cut, which is asashwata. And how do you cut that huge tree? And Sri Krishna talks about asanga shastrena dhridena chitva, using the axe of asangatvam. Cut the tree of samsara. Here, Sri Krishna is talking using the sword of knowledge. You have and cut aside all doubts. And when all doubts are gone, Sri Krishna tells that Arjuna, who like all of us is suffering, atishto uttishta. Atishto means be a karma yogi. Here atishta means be a karma yogi. Uttishta, evolve, grow, O spirit, O Bharata, O Arjuna. And that is the wonderful conclusion of the 4th chapter. So if there is something that I would like to emphasize is, how does jnanam burn all the karmas? Action takes place because of consciousness, but consciousness does not act. The body, mind are only instruments. Then who does the actions? It is the ego born out of ignorance that does all the actions. Therefore, out of the fire of knowledge, destroy ignorance, destroy ego. The real destruction is the destruction of the ego. And that is why, how do I know I have the ego? Remember this verse. Hurt and upset, whether justified or not, is always self-damaging. And in our day-to-day interactions, our immediate family members might slight us, might insult us, might do something which makes me feel a little hurt, a little upset. It is perfectly okay to feel hurt, but to feel upset. But what is important is how quickly I recover. I am utterly human. But what knowledge I know, I need to recover. I was human, but now I know through jnanam, the humanness is only a role that I play. The moment I forget, that is why as Dakshinamurti keeps one foot on the ground, always keep one foot on the ground, remembering the spiritual teaching, I am someone other than the body-mind. The body-mind lends the ego, and the ego is the karta and bhokta. And when I have no sense of ownership, I have no punya, I have no papa, there is no punarjanma for me. With this understanding, we shall be able to answer all the quiz which Vasanta will present to us. Vasanta, please.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. We will now have the quiz on this amazing topic that we've covered today. And I'll start with the first question. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is a initiating guru, inspiring guru, teaching guru, or storytelling guru. Which is he? In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is a teaching guru. He is concentrating on teaching Arjuna how to go beyond samsara. An enlightened person will not fall into greed, jealousy, cruelty, or delusion. This is from the line, Yajñatva na punar mohameva yasyasi pandava. So it is delusion. Now both greed, jealousy, cruelty, they're all true, but delusion encompasses all of them and more. In verse 4.35, the second line states, Yena bhutani aseshena drakshasi atmani atho mayi. O Arjuna, by that knowledge, you will see all beings without exception in me, as well as in yourself. So fill in the blanks here. This statement is a, and it shows Jiva Paramatma dash. So this statement is a Mahavakya, and it shows Jiva Paramatma Aikyam. Even the most immoral person can cross the ocean of material existence in this boat. Jnana Setu, Jnana Plava, Jnana Chakshu, Jnana Sindhu, Jnana Agni.
Jnanagni.
Jnana Plava, the boat of Jnana. Fill in the blanks. This fire burns all actions to ashes. That is, it nullifies karma phala. So here it is Jnanagni that burns all actions to ashes. The biggest cause of conflicts in our lives is desire to possess more and more things, inability to face the future because of emotional attachment, comparing ourselves to others all the time, constant demands on us from others, wanting to please everyone.
B.
Yes, B, inability to face the future because of emotional attachment. Now, all of the above are causes of conflict, but Swami Paramathanandaji emphasizes that it is the inability to face the future because of emotional attachment and that is the all-encompassing cause of conflicts in our lives. Which of these is a benefit of jnanaphalam? Here, multiple answers are allowed. Moha naashah, jiva paramatma aikya darshanam, sarva vyadhi nivaranam, sarva karma phala naashah, sarva papa naashah. So, moha naashah, jiva paramatma aikya darshanam, then sarva karma phala naashah, sarva papa naashah. Now, sarva vyadhi nivaranam is removal of all diseases, and unfortunately, jnanaphalam does not give us that. What will free us from the birth and death cycle? Karma phala naashah through yajna will free us from the birth and death cycle. Karma phala naashah means all papas and punyas obtained from actions are destroyed. Does a jnani's prarabdha karma get destroyed? Yes or no? It is yes and no. As far as the rest of the world is concerned, the jnani's prarabdha karma plays out its course. But as far as the jnani is concerned, he is immune to his prarabdha karma and unaffected by it. So, from the jnani's viewpoint, his prarabdha karma is destroyed. Fill in the blanks. In verse 4.38, Krishna states that dash is the greatest purifier. A yoga samsiddha, a person who has prepared his mind and body adequately, will in course of dash be able to obtain it through his own mind and revel in it. So it is jnana that is the greatest purifier, and a yoga samsiddha will in course of time be able to obtain it through his own mind and revel in it. The implication and reassurance here is that there is no question of the yoga samsiddha not obtaining jnana. What are the three requirements for acquiring jnana fast based on verse 4.39? Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparah sanyatendriyah jnanam labdhva param shantim achirena adhigacchati. So Shraddha, deep faith in the validity of the scriptures. Tatparaha, devotion to knowledge, sincere commitment to gain knowledge. And Samyata Indriya, controlled senses resulting in ability to focus. What reassurance does the question and answer format of Bhagavad Gita give us? It reassures us that it is fine to have doubts and to keep asking our Guru questions till all our doubts are dispelled. The deep faith of Shraddha is that the Shastras will have all the answers, not that they should be blindly followed. What are the qualities of a person who is not bound by his actions? So, fruits of all actions renounced through knowledge, all doubts destroyed through knowledge, being ever mindful, or pardon sought for all his papas. So fruit of all actions are renounced through knowledge. That is one of the qualities. So yoga sanyasta karma nam. And that is actually through Sravanam. So after listening to all the scriptures, the person has come to the point where they have the knowledge and that they should be renouncing all their actions. Then all doubts destroyed through knowledge. That is jnana sanchinna samshayam. So through knowledge, they have done the mananam and gotten rid of all their doubts and gotten the sthira buddhi state of being, fixed in this knowledge, ever mindful. So atmavantam. So that is the stage where they're always focused in meditation, and that is nidhidhyasanam. Thank you. Sri Gurubhyo Namah.
On Friday, the 29th, remember to join us at 6:45 p.m. for the next session of verse-by-verse study of Bhagavad Gita to learn teachings from verses 13 to 17 of chapter 14, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Starting the fourth topic with verse 14, Lord explains about Gati, travel after death, the direction the soul takes in case of death of a Sattva Guna Pradhana person, Rajo Guna Pradhana person, or a Tamo Guna Pradhana person. Friends, that brings us to a conclusion of today's session. As announced earlier, a slide with bank details is displayed for your reference. This being purely voluntary, if you desire to contribute, do respond early to enable us offer 100% of the receipts as Guru Dakshina on Guru Purnima to our Gurus. Please note, Param Vedanta does not have permission to receive foreign currency remittance. Residents outside of India can contribute either from their bank account in India or by requesting your family or friends to transfer on your behalf. Sorry for this inconvenience. Coming to today's session, I would like to express a hearty thanks, firstly to all the participants for joining us today. To Meenakshi Madam for chanting and explaining the divine mantra. To Dr. Hegde Sir for introduction and emphasizing the important aspects of today's topics. To Srimati Shamala Madam for your excellent presentation along with wonderful illustrative slides. This brings us to the close of today's class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.